When I met her, I really thought this was fate.
I went to a high-end restaurant with my mother. What I heard there was unmistakably my husband's voice. He was having a meal with a well-dressed family of strangers.
Father-in-law, mother-in-law, please, give me your daughter.
The husband stood up and bowed. I, who had been watching from a little distance, understood everything. Oh, I see. That's how it is. Well, I have something in mind too. I walked confidently towards their table and declared, "Yes, I'll offer my husband as well."
Huh?
The family's eyes widened. As I saw my husband's face turn pale, I couldn't help but curl the corners of my lips. My name is Charlotte, a 30-year-old working wife. I originally worked as an office worker in a small to medium-sized company. As my marriageable age approached and I still didn't have a boyfriend, I decided to try attending a matchmaking party. It was there that I met Benjamin, who would later become my husband. He was a salaried worker at a large corporation. I was quite impressed by his first impression. Later, Benjamin confessed his feelings to me and we began dating. After a few dates, I started to notice something that bothered me. For example, when the two of us went out to eat, and the bill was $57.
It's fine here, I'll pay.
Benjamin stopped me from taking out my wallet when I tried to. Thinking he would treat me to the meal, I thanked him at the time. But after we parted ways, I received a message from him on WhatsApp.
The meal today cost $30, right? You can give it to me next time we meet.
I was, surprised. It would have been better if he had told me that at the time. And now that I think about it, I ended up paying more than half of the bill, even though Benjamin ordered more food and drinks. But then again, I felt awkward complaining about such things. I had been paying for more than half of our date expenses every time. I did have those kind of complaints, but Benjamin was very kind to me. Aside from being frugal with money, he was an ideal partner for me. After a year of dating, Benjamin proposed to me, and I happily accepted. Later on, we had a wedding ceremony. My father and mother were also overjoyed and gave us their blessings. As their only daughter, who had been cherished and raised with love, seeing them happy was more important to me than anything else. After discussing it with Benjamin, I decided to continue working even after marriage. Surprisingly, Benjamin had initially wanted me to quit my job.
I don't want people to think I'm a useless man who can't even support his wife.
So are you saying I should become a full-time homemaker? Should we rely solely on your income for our household?
Well, maybe after we've been married for a while. I could always switch to a job with a higher salary.
So you don't want to spend money, but you want to keep up appearances. I sighed and told Benjamin. I've been working at my current job for a long time. Even if I switch jobs, there's no guarantee that I'll get a higher salary than what I'm earning now. Can't we just let me continue working at my current company without trying to show off unnecessarily? Benjamin didn't seem entirely satisfied, but I pushed through and decided to keep working. And so our newlywed life began, but one day Benjamin said the following.
Even after marriage, we can keep our finances separate, and we can split the living expenses, right? Let's each contribute $1,400 to the household budget every month.
Huh? I was a bit surprised. Benjamin worked for a top-tier company while I was in a small to medium-sized enterprise. His income was likely significantly higher than mine. If I put $1,400 into the household, I wouldn't have much left for myself. Splitting the expenses evenly is tough. I'd liked it to be reduced a bit. I appealed to Benjamin in that way, but he didn't lend an ear.
Are you planning to rely on me entirely?
I don't think of it that way, but this just feels really unfair.
It's not like that. I want to save money too, so make sure to contribute the $1,400.
In the end, I ended up complying with that condition. Even though our finances were split evenly, Benjamin often claimed to be too busy and hardly did any housework. For over a year after our marriage, I had been doing all the household chores by myself. I had complaints, but there were also a strange belief that as a wife it was my duty to do them. I continued to bear the burden of all the household chores while contributing most of my income to the family. Then one day, I received a call from my mother informing me that my father had been in a car accident. I rushed to the hospital, but by the time I arrived, it was too late. My father had already passed away. Both my mother and I were in tears, and our emotions couldn't keep up with the sudden loss. Despite our overwhelming grief, we proceeded with the funeral arrangements. Somehow we managed to get through the farewell ceremony, and then we were back home. My mother and I were utterly exhausted. Benjamin made me a cup of tea.
"Oh, thank you for your consideration, Benjamin."
Benjamin responded with a polite smile, saying,
"No, it's only natural."
After finishing my tea, I called out to my husband. "Benjamin, it's time to go."
"Huh? Already?"
Benjamin appeared, surprised for some reason. "Why are you surprised? It's late and I'm tired."
"No, I mean, you haven't had an important conversation with your mother yet, right?"
"An important conversation?"
"Aren't we going to talk about your father's inheritance?"
Both my mother and I were surprised by this. The funeral had just ended, and we hadn't even considered such matters. Besides, it wasn't something Benjamin should bring up.
"Your father had a good job, and if it's an accident, there should be a lot of insurance money, right? Charlotte, how much will you get?"
Benjamin said this with gleaming eyes, and I felt dizzy. I noticed my mother's puzzled expression and panicked. "We can discuss that another time. Let's just go home for now." I left my family home with a dissatisfied Benjamin in tow. On the way back, I scolded him for his impoliteness, but he didn't seem to agree.
"Come on, Charlotte. We're married, so it's natural to be concerned, right?"
"My mother hasn't even recovered yet, and you're rushing things. Besides, my father's inheritance doesn't concern you, does it?"
"What? Are you planning to keep the inheritance all to yourself?"
Suddenly, Benjamin glared at me, and I sighed deeply. Keeping it all to myself. The inheritance is separate property in the first place. What I receive, I'll save for our future.
"What's that supposed to mean? I was thinking of going on a big trip."
Huh? Why would you use my father's inheritance for luxury?
"You're so annoying. I didn't think you were this stingy."
I thought to myself, wondering who was the stingy one, as I held my head. Afterward, I had a discussion about the inheritance with my mother. My father's inheritance was a substantial amount, but following my mother's advice, I decided to graciously accept it. Ultimately, I put it in an account under my own name and didn't include it in our household finances. It seemed that Benjamin was dissatisfied with this and persistently tried to find out the exact amount, but I brushed it off casually. Benjamin started coming home late around the time my father's memorial service settled down. He claimed his work had become busier and would often work overtime on weekdays. Even on precious weekends, he would either have to work or simply go out. However, because I was also busy with my job, I didn't pay much attention to it. I still took care of all the household chores, but by now I had become accustomed to it. Around the time when Benjamin and I were approaching our 2-year anniversary since getting married, I spoke to him when he came home late. "Benjamin, thank you for your hard work. I have a little request."
"What is it? What do you want?"
Undaunted by Benjamin's apparent reluctance, I continued. "Isn't next Saturday our wedding anniversary? I want us to go out together after such a long time."
"Is that what this is about? Forget it, forget it. I have work that day too."
Benjamin replied, almost dismissively. "Why are you saying that? Benjamin, you've been acting strange lately. You come home late and it feels like you've become cold towards me." With tears in my eyes, I looked down, and he sent me a cold gaze.
"You're so annoying. Starting to hate being with you."
"Huh?"
"I don't earn much, and you're keeping the inheritance all to yourself. The food is terrible, and it feels like there's no point in being married anymore."
"What? Benjamin, what are you saying?"
"I'm seriously considering divorce. If you don't like that, then you should reflect on yourself as a wife."
Benjamin spat out these words and went to the bedroom. The word divorce, presented suddenly, made my heart race like a runaway train. Why did Benjamin suddenly mention divorce? Something is not right. At that moment, I was shocked, but also began to feel suspicious of my husband's behavior. After that, Benjamin stopped talking to me entirely. While enduring such a life, I received a message from my mother.
"Charlotte, are you doing well?"
"Ah." Recalling Benjamin's recent behavior, I couldn't give my mother a positive response. Then, as if she had sensed it, my mother said,
"It seems like something's bothering you. How about we have a meal together, just the two of us, like old times?
Yes, I'd love that. I'm free on Saturday.
Oh, isn't that the day of your anniversary?
Yes, it is, but Benjamin seems to be working, so it's fine. In response to my answer, my mother waited for a moment before saying,
I understand. Well, I'll make a reservation at a nice place then. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Mom. I was grateful for my mother's consideration. And then came Saturday. I had arranged to meet my mother in the city during the day. As I followed her instructions, we ended up at a famous high-end restaurant. Mom, is it okay to go to such an expensive place?
Sometimes it's fine, Charlotte. You seem a bit down, so I decided to splurge.
My mother smiled at me, and I returned the smile. That's right. Today, let's forget about Benjamin and enjoy a meal with my mother. As I was about to take my seat, I froze at the sight in front of me. Sitting diagonally across from me, with his back turned to me, was a man in a suit. He looked exactly like Benjamin. At that table, there was a young man and woman, as well as an older, well-dressed couple facing each other and sitting down. As I couldn't take my eyes off them, I overheard their conversation.
We never thought Scarlett would bring such a wonderful man with her.
Yes, Benjamin seems like a really great guy. I was shocked by the older couple's words. Did they just say Benjamin? Then Benjamin spoke up politely and said something unexpected.
I met her, and I seriously thought that this was fate.
The voice was unmistakably Benjamin's.
Please, father, mother, grant me your daughter.
Benjamin stood up and bowed, and at that moment, I realized everything. Ah, I see. So that's what it was. In that case, I have my own plans. I confidently walked up to their table and said, Yes, I'll give you my husband.
Huh?
The eyes of that family widened significantly. Without a doubt, my husband Benjamin was there. Seeing his pale face, I smirked at the corner of my lips. Next to Benjamin sat a petite and cute young woman named Scarlett. She seemed surprised as well. So the elderly couple must undoubtedly be Scarlett's parents. Then Scarlett's father cleared his throat and said,
Who might you be? I don't quite understand what you're saying.
I calmly responded, My name is Charlotte. I am Benjamin's wife. There was a moment of silence at the table. Benjamin still looked pale and hadn't said a word. That's when Scarlett grabbed Benjamin's arm and shook him. Wife? What does this mean? Hey, Benjamin, what's going on? Then Benjamin had a startled expression on his face.
This is not... What's going on, Benjamin?
Under the stern gaze of Scarlett's father, Benjamin finally said this.
This woman is my stalker. She's a crazy person who became infatuated with me and delusionally thinks she's my wife. Please, don't be deceived, everyone.
At this point, the way people around me looked at me changed drastically. Just as I was about to angrily speak up, a quiet voice resonated.
Who's calling someone's daughter a crazy stalker?
Unbeknownst to me, my mother had appeared next to me.
Mom?
Benjamin inadvertently blurted out. Benjamin, what do you mean by mom? Isn't this person the stalker? When Scarlett confronted him, Benjamin stammered. Then my mother calmly stated,
Nice to meet you. I am this girl's mother and I am Benjamin's mother-in-law. It is a fact that my daughter and Benjamin are married.
What? Really? My mother extended her phone screen to show Scarlett's shocked mother. On the screen were photos from our wedding.
The two of them got married 2 years ago and they haven't separated.
What? Scarlett and her parents were fixated on my mother's phone screen and Benjamin finally began to tremble. What is this? You were married to her? Scarlett grabbed Benjamin's collar and started shaking him.
No, I was planning to break up with her soon. It's true. Please, believe me. So, does this mean that she is your wife without a doubt?
Scarlett's father inquired in a low voice.
Well, yes, that's right.
Finally, Benjamin admitted the truth, and Scarlett and her parents were left in shock. I followed up with, You can marry or do whatever you want, but before that, divorce me. Be prepared to pay a hefty alimony.
Charlotte, it's just...
Next, I turned to Scarlett's family and said, Scarlett didn't seem to know that he was married, so I won't ask for alimony. If you want to marry him, please go ahead. This is no joke. Scarlett yelled this out, then stood up and threw a generous amount of water on Benjamin's head. You traitor! You fooled both me and your wife, didn't you? You're such scum. Get lost! Scarlett grabbed Benjamin by the collar and shouted. Then she lowered her head to me and left the restaurant. Scarlett's parents also shook their heads and got up.
Benjamin, I'm disappointed in you. I'll have to cancel our business dealings. Mr. President, please, wait a moment.
Benjamin tried to stop them for a moment, but they shrugged him off and continued following Scarlett. Left alone at the table, Benjamin remained soaking wet and dumbfounded. I then snapped at him. I bet you chose Scarlett with money just like this penny pincher. People like you should go to hell, you scumbag. Then, leaving Benjamin behind like an empty shell, my mother and I also left the restaurant. Later on, the divorce between Benjamin and me was finalized. I received $20,000 in alimony. In terms of property division, we settled on a 70% share for me and 30% for Benjamin. Benjamin's affair partner, Scarlett, turned out to be the daughter of a business partner. Scarlett and her parents were furious, and Benjamin was also asked for alimony by Scarlett. Benjamin depleted his savings, paying alimony to both me and Scarlett. Moreover, Scarlett's father terminated the business dealings with Benjamin's company, resulting in his dismissal. Unemployed, Benjamin currently lives in a rundown apartment. It seems he is desperately searching for a new job. However, this story has spread as a rumor, making it difficult for him to find employment in the same industry with a similar high salary. He probably won't be able to secure a job with the same high pay as before. On the other hand, I left the house where I lived with Benjamin and returned to my parents' home. To commemorate the divorce's finalization, my mother and I are discussing having a luxurious lunch that we couldn't have at that time. From now on, I want to work hard at my job and create a positive outlook on my life. A cute child born between my beloved husband and me, but my mother-in-law can't help but blurt out that my son is not cute. To think she can say such a thing about her own grandchild? And to make matters worse, she treats me, her daughter-in-law, as an intruder. Well, if that's the way she feels, then I can do the same. This is the story of the most selfish and awful mother-in-law, and the tale of the daughter-in-law who stands up to her. My name is Maya. When I was 28 years old, I got married to my husband, Andrew. A year ago, our long-awaited son, Liam, was born. Around the time our son turned 6 months old, I also returned to work. I was juggling work and entrusted our child to daycare. Some people might think that it's too early for such things. However, we had a certain situation. My husband's workplace wasn't doing well, and since we got married, his salary gradually decreased. To be honest, I'm currently earning twice as much as he is. We also have a newborn child, and we know that we'll need even more money in the future. With that in mind, I decided to return to work sooner. I never had any complaints about going back to work because I didn't dislike my job in the first place. However, there was someone who didn't approve of my return to work. That person was my husband's mother. My mother-in-law moved in with us 3 months ago, but it seems like she has issues with me. She not only criticizes my parenting, but also finds fault with my everyday actions. Putting such young children in daycare? You're unfit as a mother. It's been a tradition for women to stay home and take care of the household, hasn't it? Come on, what era are we living in? She endlessly lectures me with such old-fashioned beliefs. As soon as I come home from work with my son, you're working until this late again. Don't you think Liam deserves better? She immediately started shouting. On my days off, I spend the whole day with Liam. He's doing just fine at daycare, and we have a stable routine there, so it's okay, you know. If I try to argue back, she raises her eyebrows sharply. Are you really going to unquestioningly believe what complete strangers like daycare workers say? If that's the case, your child won't grow up properly, you know. My mother-in-law, who doesn't usually take care of our son, still feels entitled to give parenting advice as if she's an expert. And on top of that, she doesn't hesitate to criticize my personality. Living with a daughter-in-law who only cares about her job. Honestly, I regret it too. Why did Andrew marry someone like her? I feel like I'm going crazy with stress every day. At that moment, even I, who is usually patient, couldn't help but get irritated. Well, if it bothers you that much, would you like us to stop living together? You do understand why we ended up living together, don't you, mother-in-law? Yes, there is a reason why my mother-in-law started living with us. Originally, my mother-in-law and father-in-law lived together in their own family home. Then one day, my father-in-law had a traffic accident and became paralyzed from the waist down. Furthermore, it was discovered that he had advanced dementia, and my mother-in-law couldn't handle it anymore. She had to place my father-in-law in a care facility. Afterwards, she asked us to come back and live together here. She pressed us to move back in together, but both my husband and I had jobs to attend to. Considering the commuting situation, we couldn't just move from our current home. Then one day, my mother-in-law suddenly brought her belongings to our house without asking, and ended up staying. Ultimately, this cohabitation wasn't by mutual consent. It's essentially an inconvenient living arrangement where my mother-in-law moved in on her own accord. I understand that it's tough, considering that you're parents-in-law. That's why we agreed to live together. But didn't we promise not to interfere with each other from the beginning? Oh, did we? I can't even remember something from that long ago. Even though I emphasize the promise, it's clear that my mother-in-law feels completely empowered and knows she won't be kicked out. Her attitude was getting on my nerves. Please, stop this already. We agreed not to interfere, didn't we? We accepted living together with you, right? This isn't how it was supposed to be. You're so noisy. I wonder why Maya isn't as sweet as Luna. Luna is such a well-behaved child. Luna is my husband's younger brother's wife. In my case, she's like a sister-in-law by marriage. Well, she also has a rather unpleasant personality. Or maybe it's better to say she's sly rather than having a bad personality. She became a full-time homemaker shortly after marrying my brother-in-law, and she was very much liked by my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law would unilaterally summon Luna to this house, and the two of them would gossip about me. Hey Luna, listen to this. Maya, you know, she's still continuing to work. Oh, really? Even though Liam is still so little? It's impressive that she can manage that. See? Right? In that regard, you're doing well by being a stay-at-home wife. You can rest assured even if you have children someday. I deeply respect you, Mom, so I'll do my best. This continuous parade of trying to please each other goes on relentlessly. What's more, they deliberately speak loudly within my earshot. I genuinely disliked the way those two acted. Eventually, Luna, perhaps wanting to be liked by my mother-in-law, started speaking ill of me on her own. Your husband, if I recall correctly, earns about as much as my husband, right? Yet despite that, the fact that you both work means your budgeting skills are lacking, aren't they? Certainly, a few years ago, their salaries might have been similar, but now my husband's is even less. I hadn't told them about my husband's company struggling, partly due to pride. When Luna criticized me, my mother-in-law enthusiastically joined in, and it had become a regular routine. Really? I can't imagine leaving the kids to someone else to take care of when it's my fault for being so bad at making ends meet. Luna, you shouldn't be this kind of wife, okay? Of course. It's because I have super respect for your mother. I can't help it. Oh, Luna. They should have their excessive flattery contest somewhere else, as it was making me feel embarrassed just listening to it. It only added to my stress. I felt like I had reached my limit living with my mother-in-law, so I decided to talk to my husband about it. Hey, it's about your mom. Almost every day she invites Luna over and makes fun of me. Huh? Mom does that? Since I usually get home earlier than my husband, he wasn't aware of me being mistreated. As expected, he had a puzzled expression. Exactly. She promised not to interfere, but she criticizes me for continuing to work. She hangs out with Luna and endlessly badmouths me. I can't take it anymore. After thinking for a while, my husband says something unbelievable. Well, Maya, Luna seems to get along fine with Mom, right? So maybe, Maya, you could try to compromise with Mom a bit? Huh? Hey, were you even listening to me? Mom even denies my personality. How can I compromise with someone like that? When I pressed him on it, my husband scratched his head indifferently.
Don't be so uptight. Just try to be like Luna for once. Then Mom will probably like you more.
What's that supposed to mean? Pretending to be all sweet to win your mother over? Enough already, I was a fool to seek advice. I felt like there was no one on my side right now, and frustration welled up inside me, more than anger. Next day, the snide remarks from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law continued, as usual. When I started preparing dinner after returning home, I heard a voice like this. Are you planning to make another terrible dinner tonight? You're always cutting corners, and it's really annoying.
Well, it's probably because of your job, isn't it? Your mother-in-law and I would never serve our husbands half-hearted meals like this, you know. In my opinion, neither my mother-in-law's cooking nor Luna's deserves any compliments. My mother-in-law's food is overly seasoned and not that tasty, and even for my sister-in-law, who practically lives with us every day, you'd think her domestic skills would be apparent. While muttering complaints in my heart, I silently continued preparing dinner. When my husband returned home, both my mother-in-law and Luna blatantly changed their attitudes, and neither of them harassed me. Because of this, my husband couldn't trust what I said. Just then, an incident occurred. While I was at work, I received a sudden call from the daycare. After learning the details, I quickly contacted my husband and rushed home. There, I found my mother-in-law and my sobbing son. Hold on, Mom. What exactly are you trying to do? Taking Liam away from daycare without permission? When I yelled, my mother-in-law sighed in exasperation and looked at me with a condescending expression as if mocking me. What are you talking about? I did it for the sake of my grandchild. Daycare is just a waste of money. Child rearing is something a mother should do, isn't it? That's your own selfish belief, isn't it? Even though there are circumstances and I left my child in your care without permission, taking them away without consent is just plain rude. It's practically kidnapping. Huh? Kidnapping? It's my grandchild, for heaven's sake. Whether it's a grandchild or not doesn't matter. You ignored the daycare teacher's objections and took them away on your own, which is no different from kidnapping. At this point, my mother-in-law just shrugged her shoulders. Eventually, she began saying something outrageous. Ha! Nonsense. Neither you nor the grandchild are cute at all. If you have complaints, just leave already. For me, it's one thing, but my grandchild? Not being cute? At that moment, a loud warning bell rang inside me. To think my own grandchild isn't cute, and to say it so casually in front of the grandchild. Living together with someone like this any longer is impossible. I will absolutely not forgive her for belittling my precious son. I absolutely must protect this child. At that moment, my husband returned home and I immediately told him, Andrew, it was your mother who took Liam from daycare. I've reached my limit, Andrew. I can't live with your mother. Then my mother-in-law suddenly started pretending to cry and playing the victim. Listen, Andrew, can you believe Maya treats me like a kidnapper? I was just going to pick up adorable Liam. Don't you think this is terrible? Just picking him up? My mother-in-law's words got me heated up as well. Don't joke around. Earlier you said our child isn't cute, right? Telling me to leave quickly. You can leave. This is our home. Do you plan to act like a good mother only in front of my husband? Andrew, please help me. Maya always harasses me like this. Seeing my mother-in-law crying and pleading with my husband, I couldn't help but find it all absurd. If my husband were to side with this melodramatic act of my mother-in-law, I thought at that moment we would live with just my son and me. That's what I thought. My husband was the first to break the silence. For now, let Maya and me have a conversation. Please go back to your room, Mom. My husband, who always took his mother's side, made this statement, leaving my mother-in-law wide-eyed. What are you saying? This is about Maya, so why don't you listen to me? Is that how it is? After all I've been through? This time it involves Liam as well, so as parents, Maya and I want to have a proper conversation. My mother-in-law wore a consistently dissatisfied expression, but she probably couldn't say anything against her son, so she reluctantly agreed. After that, my husband and I talked for hours about this incident and past issues. We reached a certain conclusion, and a few days later we decided to convey the details to my mother-in-law. Mom, sorry for keeping you waiting. We finally sorted things out. My husband greeted my mother-in-law with a smile.
Seeing that smile, my mother-in-law seemed convinced that my husband had taken her side, and happily began speaking.
Is that so? Finally, you're getting away from Maya, right?
Without paying any attention to my side of the story, my mother-in-law was delighted. She called my brother-in-law's family over and started talking about me as usual, bad-mouthing me endlessly.
Oh, it's really great. Today we'll finally be able to say goodbye to Maya. Right, Maya?
In response to her question, I answered with a smile, of course.
Good, then get out quickly. Take that not-so-cute child who looks just like you with you. From now on, this house will be for me, Andrew, and my other son's family. I'll be living there. Bye!
Then my husband, who had been silent until then, suddenly opened his mouth. Shall we go, Maya?
Huh?
Yes, let's go, Andrew.
Huh? Huh?
It seemed my mother-in-law couldn't quite comprehend it, repeating, huh? Several times. As my husband and I carried our belongings, we headed towards the front door with our family of 3. At that moment, my mother-in-law called out to us.
Wait, Andrew, what on earth is going on? We're going to live together in this house, right?
What are you talking about?
My husband turned back to my mother-in-law with a cold expression.
I'm leaving with Maya. I can't tolerate your delusions any longer.
My mother-in-law's body trembled and she slumped to the ground in disbelief.
Why? Why are you taking her side?
I heard everything from Liam's daycare teacher. How you took Liam away on your own, how you verbally abused the daycare staff, and how you bad-mouthed Maya at the daycare.
That's...
I never thought my mother could be such a terrible person. I misjudged her. Just surround yourself with people who actually listen to what you say and try to live a good life.
With those words, my husband pushed me forward and left the house. My mother-in-law cried until the very end, calling my husband's name. On the way to our new home, my husband apologized to me.
I'm sorry I didn't realize it sooner. Please, forgive me.
What are you saying? Just by taking action like this, it's more than enough. I smiled at my husband. Yes, I was more than happy that my husband believed my story this time and not my mother-in-law. Since then, we no longer have anything to do with my mother-in-law or my brother-in-law and his wife, and we've been able to regain a peaceful daily life. After that house was cancelled, so my mother-in-law had no place to live. She seems to have moved in with my brother-in-law's family. With my mother-in-law joining and putting a financial strain on them, they couldn't manage on just my brother-in-law's income. As a result, my sister-in-law had to start working, and now my mother-in-law is all alone at home. There's no one to badmouth anymore, and they don't even have someone to exchange harsh words with. In fact, even with Luna, whom she used to get along with so well, they now have constant arguments.
It's because of you that I had to start working, isn't it? Spare me.
Huh? Is it my fault?
You're in the way, you old hag.
Seeing Luna's true nature, it seems even my brother-in-law's feelings cooled off. Now they're in the middle of divorce proceedings. She used to be able to pretend in front of my brother-in-law because she had a lot of time on her hands, but now that she's working, she's getting frustrated more and more. It seems her true colors emerged. Whatever situation they find themselves in, I have no intention of ever having anything to do with my mother-in-law and the others. It's just my husband, my son, and me. We plan to work together to build a happy family from now on.
Seriously, you drive me nuts. I told you from day one housework isn't my thing. Stop dumping stuff on me when you know I'm bad at it.
Chris grumbled, taking another swig of his beer and giving me that all too familiar annoyed look. I hesitated for a second under his piercing eyes, but shot back. Hey, I work too. Even if housework isn't your strong suit, how about just tossing your clothes in the wash at least? I was aware Chris wasn't Mr. Domestic when we tied the knot, but seriously? Tossing dirty laundry shouldn't be rocket science.
I told you, work's crazy right now. I'm burning the candle at both ends, and then I come home to laundry lectures? Isn't housework and kids stuff traditionally the woman's gig? Handle it and quit griping at me.
He fired back. The notion that all household duties in childcare are the woman's job feels so last century. I bit my tongue, holding back a retort, but Chris, taking my silence as a victory, went on.
While we're on the topic, you're not exactly Mrs. Perfect Homemaker. You cut corners too, so drop the act.
I'm solo on the kid front, remember? Nailing every chore daily isn't doable. That's why I need some backup here. His answer was a sarcastic smirk.
Want me pitching in on chores? Then out-earn me. Until then, don't even think about calling the shots.
He punctuated his rant with a raised hand, causing a loud noise that reverberated in the room. I'm Naomi, juggling a job and 2 daughters, and living with Chris, the husband who thinks home duties are below him. Going solo raising our kids, especially when Molly, our eldest in 2nd grade, gets sick often, is a real challenge. Her health isn't dire, she just catches bugs easily. Knowing she can live a normal life with the right care, I decided to punch back into the workforce, grinding for our future. Hey there! On my off day, my sis-in-law Erica, who lives close by, dropped by. Brought this for later, she chirped, holding up a treat. Aw, thanks, Erica. Look, Molly, Erica's got cake. Both Molly and our little one, Sarah, were over the moon. Erica and I are tight. Living solo in our area, she once had an office gig, but her childcare dream beckoned, and she's now prepping to make it official. Super swamped, she still makes time for my girls, popping by for some fun. Chris, seriously? Both of you work, but you're cool with Naomi shouldering all the home stuff? Erica, never mincing words, regularly calls him out for his slacking.
All that home and kid stuff? That's a woman's job. Kids want their mom anyway.
Chris, get with the times. That's such an archaic mindset. How about giving Naomi a hand? When his sis stepped in, my normally outspoken hubby clammed up. His sister's words seemed to carry more weight than mine, and I appreciated the backup. Chris, swamped at work, has been clocking in some serious OT, coming home super late and even slogging through weekends. When he's finally home, his routine doesn't change. He'll drop his clothes wherever and crack open a cold one. Wiped out from my job, endless chores, and parenting, I finally let out. Is it too much to ask for you to pick up your clothes?
If you got beef with it, handle it. I'm beat.
Join the club. Our kids can at least tidy up after themselves. Can't you pitch in a little? My bubbling frustration over his non-existent help boiled over. Clearly peeved, he downed the rest of his beer and gave me a piercing glare.
How many times have I told you housework isn't my thing? Lay off.
But I shot back. Guess what? I work too. A little assistance here and there wouldn't hurt. Even something small like tossing your clothes in the laundry. Before marrying, he'd always lived at home and never got the hang of chores. I attempted to coach him post-wedding, but it didn't stick. So naturally, everything fell on me. Balancing a job and caring for our girls, all I was asking for was him tackling simple tasks like sending his dirty clothes to the laundry.
I've made it clear work's nuts for me right now. I'm clocking more hours than you. I come back dead tired and you're on my case about dirty socks. Isn't it traditional for women to cover housework and kid stuff? Get on it. This conversation's over.
He barked. Housework is a woman's thing? Seriously, what century is this? Angrily, I fell silent, but seeing this, he smirked and continued attacking.
And you think you're the gold standard for chores? You're not exactly spotless, yet here you are griping.
I'm practically solo parenting here. Perfect isn't an option every day. That's the whole reason I've been hounding you for backup. He just scoffed.
Want me on board? Out-earn me. Do that and we'll talk. Until then, zip it.
His hand shot up threateningly. Back off! Don't you dare! He chucked his empty beer can in the direction of the trash can near me. It missed, but the clang made me jump. He stormed out with a snarky huff. Mom, everything okay? I was taken aback to find my older daughter Molly and her little sister gazing up at me, worried. I'm good, honey. Did the noise wake you? Nope. Sarah needed the restroom and I was on it. Don't worry, I'll tuck her back in. Molly, always looking out for her sis, is such a gem. She's blossomed into such a sweet soul. Thinking of her and then Chris. I sighed heavily. One day, Erica popped in as usual. "Where's Chris hiding?" "He's swamped at work. Won't be back till late. You should stick around for dinner." She agreed, though something seemed off, not her typical bubbly self. "You okay?" She hesitated, locking eyes with me, took a deep breath and said, "There's something you need to know." Her news floored me, and so I made a decision. A few days later, during my day off, a younger coworker landed in the hospital with appendicitis, pulling me into work. But wouldn't you know it, Molly wasn't feeling great that morning. She had a touch of a fever, but duty called. Erica, my usual backup, was tied up with an exam. My folks are no longer around, and my in-laws are states away. While I was in a tizzy, Chris sauntered in, all cozy in his PJs. I'd assumed he was on the clock, but turns out he had the day free. Perfect, I thought. I left the girls with him and zipped to work. Thanks to my tight teamwork with my younger colleague, things flowed smoothly. But just as the clock nudged past 3 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Erica, sounding all kinds of alarmed. Turns out Molly had been whisked off to the ER. Erica, popping by post-exam, had found Molly passed out in our yard with a distraught Sarah by her side. To top it off, it was a scorcher that day, soaring to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Despite Erica's best efforts, all Sarah could relay was her confusion and fear. With the house locked tight, Erica's quick thinking had her dialing 911. Dashing to the hospital, I found a newly conscious Molly. "Oh, Molly, thank goodness." Her hug was tight, but her words floored me. "Daddy kicked us out." She went on to say that midday, as her fever seemed to wane, he shooed them outside, saying he had company coming. No hats, no water, just out. They tried chilling at the park, but Molly's health took a nosedive, forcing them back. No luck getting inside, even after endless doorbell rings. Hence the shadowy reprieve at our home's side, probably why no neighbors spotted them. What the? Boy, was I steaming. After chatting with the doc, Molly was set for an overnight stay. Glancing at my phone, I saw a barrage of missed calls from Chris. On calling him back, he was in a tizzy.
"I turned my back for a second and now they're missing,"
I snapped. "And where were you?"
I thought Molly was better, so I went shopping. Got back, they weren't here."
His flimsy cover story reeked of lies. Molly has passed away. With that, I abruptly hung up the phone. He was clearly shaken, and it was evident that he was lying. Erica, with me in the room, wasn't buying it either. Choosing to crash at Erica's for a bit, I left Sarah in her care. On a pit stop home for essentials, Chris pounced, hungry for answers. How could she die of heat stroke when you were supposed to be home?
It's not on me. They must have gone rogue in the heat. They never listen."
His lame attempt at dodging blame had my skin crawling. "I've got a funeral to plan. Keep your distance." I left, barely holding back from decking him. Putting our kids in harm's way and then fibbing about it, he sunk to a new low. Unforgivable. My fists were white-knuckled with rage. Fast forward a week. "Chris, seriously?" My shout had him and his lady friend doing a double take, scrambling to get decent in our bedroom.
"A heads up would have been nice."
He and his fling scrambled to throw on clothes. "Cheating, huh? Let's call it quits." I slapped some papers in his face. With photo proof of his little escapade and divorce docs in hand, he blanched. I'd had my suspicions about his overtime and weekend shifts. Erica's tidbit about spotting him cozy with a mystery woman downtown was the last straw. After that one sighting from Erica, without a photo to boot, I decided to play it safe and hire a private investigator. For good measure, I also sneaked some hidden cameras around the house. While bunking at Erica's, I got the PI's report, confirming Chris was stepping out. Armed with divorce papers, I faced him.
"How'd you figure out about her?"
he stammered. The camera's feed directly to my phone. I shot back, showing them the not-so-innocent footage from just minutes before our dramatic entrance. Both of their faces lost all color. Turns out his little side fling was a notorious colleague known for her less-than-ethical pursuits of any guy, ring or no ring.
What's so special about her? Honestly, the thought of being related to you makes my skin crawl.
Erica's temper flared, but Chris snapped.
This is between Naomi and me, not you.
But then, like a scene from a movie, the front door swings open and in walks my in-laws. They'd been delayed by traffic, but I'd looped them in with a video proof. They were livid.
Oh my gosh, Chris. Chris, explain.
They demanded. After getting an earful from his folks, he was a mess, sweating bullets and looking everywhere but at me. The other woman got the boot pretty quickly, and both Erica and his parents laid into him. They made him ink the divorce papers and sign an agreement to stay away from the kids.
The kids? Plural?
He asked, genuinely confused. Molly's fine, but you're not seeing her. Just thought I'd let you know before I ask for child support and alimony, I said, keeping my tone frosty. The next day, I didn't waste any time filing those papers and went after both him and his fling for alimony. Word got out at their office, and let's just say they weren't exactly the office favorites. The cops got involved because, well, neglecting a kid is serious business. Turned out, on that horrible day, he was with her. She ended up quitting her job, and after he couldn't support her anymore, she dumped all his dirty laundry at work, which got him to quit too. One evening, out of the blue, Chris showed up, probably after keeping tabs on Erica's place.
Naomi, can we talk? Maybe try again?
He pleaded, inching closer, but I wasn't buying his act. He just didn't want to pay up. I shut him down quick. Not in a million years. But he wasn't taking the hint and grabbed my arm. Back off, I yelled. Right on cue, Molly and Sarah come home. Sarah, bless her heart, set off her personal alarm, which she always carries in her bag. That ear-piercing sound got everyone's attention. He tried to make a break for it, but a nearby cop wasn't letting him get away. A bit later, with a big assist from my ex-in-laws, we started fresh in a new place. The police had a few more questions for Chris. His parents were livid and made sure he got a job at a family-owned construction site to keep him in line and ensure he paid his dues. Nowadays, it's me and my girls. Erica's as close as ever, always telling Sarah she's a champ for setting off that alarm. She also passed her childcare worker exam, so we've got a party in the works. Molly's back in school and shining brighter than ever. Seeing them, I'm more determined than ever to be the best mom and protector I can be.